Well, hello everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. Today's webinar topic, sponsored by Huawei and our great partner Nimdesk, is VDI, the answer to economical, reliable, and productive desktops. A couple pieces of housekeeping here in the beginning. First of all, we really do want to thank you very much for taking time out of your day to spend a little time to learn about VDI with us today. And to kind of reward you and show our appreciation, we're going to give everyone a $10 Starbucks gift card if you stay on the webinar the whole time. So hopefully that's just some small token of our appreciation and just a recognition that we appreciate you being a part of these sessions that we do. As we always like to do, we want to keep these sessions informative to what you're looking for. So if you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A panel on the GoToWebinar interface. We will answer as many of those as we can at the end of the presentation, and we'll also try to answer them in real time as you ask them as well. Also, we're going to have some polling questions. And those are always fun just to get a feel for what you're thinking and what your peers are thinking. So when we have those polling questions pop up, please answer them, and we'll share the results with everybody in attendance, which makes it fun. Finally, I want to mention that we're going to be recording this session, and it will show up on our website, on the Huawei Enterprise USA website, shortly after the conclusion of the webinar, for sure by tomorrow. So if you want to be able to pass it on to another friend, or you want to just share it with someone, or listen to other parts of it again, you can by going on to the Huawei website in the resources section. With me today is going to be Mitch Crane, who's the CEO of Nimdesk. He's a true expert in the field of VDI, and we're very happy and excited to have him being one of the presenters today in the webinar. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Just to set the stage for this webinar, really, one of the things that Huawei is very excited about and very focused on is this convergence that's occurring in the market today between IT and communications technology. And really, this convergence is being driven by three trends, the first of which is the adoption and use of cloud models. And I'm talking about everything from private, public, or hybrid clouds. The second thing is the explosion of mobility in pretty much every vertical you can imagine, including education, retail, public, and many others. And this is driving the mobile workforce percentage ever higher. And then finally is the consumerization of IT. And that's really talking about technologies that have previously been seen in the enterprise are now kind of migrating down into the consumer base and just kind of creating a blurred line between what a consumer is and what you've seen in IT. So with all this going on, we think it really makes sense to align yourself with a company that spans these technologies and is equally at ease in the worlds of technology and enterprise and service provider and consumer. So this is really kind of where we're at. And now I'd like to just give you a little bit of an overview of Huawei very briefly. So if you don't know, Huawei is a massive company, $40 billion now. In 2014, we're going to be over $40 billion in revenue. And I think one of the important things we like to mention is that we're serving 45 of the world's top 50 telecom operators. And the reason we feel that's important is because if you're familiar with the level of sophistication and robustness required in the telco arena, they require absolute bulletproof products that work all the time and work reliably. And so to be able to be the choice of 45 of the world's top 50 really says something about Huawei's quality and our innovation and our ability to deliver great products. And as we move those products into the enterprise market, what you're going to see is a very attractive price point, but still with a product that is very innovative, very feature-rich, and very robust and reliable. We're deployed in over 140 countries. The company has over 150,000 employees, 70,000 of which are engineers that are working in R&D. So a huge engineering component to the company, and that drives all of our innovation. In North America, we established our first office here in the U.S. in 2001. It's in Plano, Texas. We also have large offices in Cupertino, California, also an R&D center in Santa Clara, and various other ones spread around the country as well. So, very established business here in the U.S. I would like to talk just for a minute about innovation in general and just kind of take you through a little bit of the focus that Huawei has on innovation. I mentioned we have 70,000 plus R&D employees. We have 23 R&D centers worldwide. And I think one of the really staggering figures is that we've spent in 2013 over $5.5 billion in R&D in 2013 alone. So when you see the breadth of our product portfolio, I think you'll appreciate just how much money that we're investing across the entire product portfolio that we develop in R&D, and it really says a lot about the kind of company that we are. Also want to mention that we have made tremendous investment in standards organizations, including participating in more than 23,000 standards-related manuscripts, and we're members of over 150 international standards organizations, and including things such as IEEE, IETF, DMTF, etc. So just, very much focused in trying to support open standards, trying to support what companies are doing to collaborate together, to work together. This is a big part of who we are and what we do. Another thing I'd like to mention is our patents. We have almost 50,000 patents globally, and that is just a staggering figure, but it kind of ties back to the fact that we have such an investment in R&D that we have a lot of our own intellectual property that we're creating and obviously patenting. So just a bit of a flavor of how the company's focused. The last thing I'd like to talk about just very briefly is the overall portfolio of products that Huawei offers, and then I'll kind of tell you where we're going to be focused today from a Huawei perspective before I turn it over to Mitch. So first of all, we have three kind of major areas of product focus. The first is unified communications and collaboration. This would be our phones, our PBXs, teleconferencing, video conferencing, things like that. The next one is our campus and branch solutions, and this would be really our broad networking portfolio, everything from top-of-rack switches to a variety of campus and branch type switches that you can see, and routers and access points, wireless, and also enterprise wireless, which is our ELTE solution where we create mobile broadband services. And then finally our data center presence, which includes high-end top-of-rack switching and a number of different networking components that fit into the data center. This is also where you'll see our server line and our storage line. So in today's presentation, we're going to focus specifically on the Huawei solutions that tie the servers and storage together in order to provide the platform that the VDI software runs on top of, and Mitch will talk more about that. We also have a number of software solutions, including our eSite Unified Management that kind of ties all this stuff together. We have security products, and then the verticals that we focus across are kind of ones that you'd expect: education, retail. We have a big play in media and entertainment, as well as state and local government, etc. So that's just a bit about Huawei's product line. We do so many webinars that we really want to try to give you some context on where we're focused. But today's webinar will focus on VDI, and the Huawei solution that fits into that will be the storage and server. So with that introduction, what I'd like to do now is go ahead and launch the first polling question. What we want to find out a little bit from you now is, what is your organization, or if you're a partner, what are your customers' top initiatives right now from a perspective of top initiatives in their organization? Is it BYOD, which is supporting the whole bring your own device thing? Is it desktop virtualization? Is it virtualizing applications? Is it server virtualization? Or is it moving to the cloud, whether it be data, compute, or apps? So we'll go ahead and give you a little bit of time to vote on that polling question, and then we'll share the results with you. I do want to just remind you one more time as we're going through this, if you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A panel within your GoToWebinar interface. We really appreciate questions, so if you hear something that you don't understand, or if you have a question about some further detail on something, please ask those questions there. It's much appreciated. So give you about 5 more seconds to vote, and then we're going to go ahead and share the results with you. All right, let's go ahead and close it out, and then we'll share the results. So as you can see that a little over a third of you are, your top initiative is moving to the cloud. About a quarter of you, it's server virtualization. We have about 13% on desktop virtualization, almost 20% on BYOD, and to a little bit lesser extent application virtualization. But a fairly good spread, with moving to the cloud being one of the biggest ones. So excellent, thank you for that. So at this point, what I'd like to do is turn the presentation over to the CEO of Nimdesk, Mitch Crane, and he's going to lead us through the bulk of the rest of the presentation. Mitch, take it away.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Nick. Really happy to be on the webinar today with Huawei, and happy to represent Nimdesk. Really just thrilled to have everyone here, and thank you so much for taking your time out of everyone's busy day. So with that, let's just get right into things. So VDI, we want to make sure that folks first have an understanding of exactly what it is that we're offering when we talk about VDI. There's a lot of kind of confusion in the marketplace, and a lot of folks with initiatives, such as moving to the cloud or BYOD, that don't maybe understand possibly how much VDI could help them. to accomplish those initiatives. So we want to first talk about what exactly is VDI. So virtualizing desktops, moving the desktop compute portion into virtual machines and then serving them from a centralized location. So essentially, there's a little bit more to it than really meets the eye. With server virtualization, which a lot of folks are probably more familiar with, you're essentially taking those, heavy hitter servers that are, sprawled across the data center, centralizing them into one location, and then, getting the economy of scale out of the server infrastructure that's being built up at the hypervisor level. Now, we're able to take advantage of a lot of the same innovation that's taken place over the last 10, 15 years in terms of hypervisor technology and apply that towards solving the desktop problem. So essentially what we are trying to do is take that desktop computing portion of the workload, move it away from the endpoint where essentially folks are either dragging around their laptop or they're sitting in front of a physical PC at their desk, and move that compute portion to the far more efficient data center technology, which is running in a hypervisor. Now the cool thing there is now you can get a handle on the actual data that's being used inside those virtual machines, because now you've centralized everything into the data center. So you're much less likely to have kind of that data sprawl that you get when folks are utilizing their personal devices or their physical PCs at their desk. So really we're talking about virtualization specifically on the desktop side and just decoupling that compute portion from the actual application and data that's being served to the end users to do their job. So yeah, essentially we're talking about enabling BYOD initiatives. That's kind of one of the #1 reasons that folks are coming to Nimdesk and looking for VDI solutions. They have folks that are using their own cell phone or their own laptop computer to access their work documents and do their work on a day-to-day basis. And what ends up happening is you've created a problem, because now you're talking about moving data that should be secure in the data center into that endpoint device. And suddenly that data is exposed in case that person were to lose that device. There's a possibility that someone could pick up the device and instantly be able to have access to data that would be on that device. That could be very sensitive data. The nightmare scenario is that the accountants are working on the quarterly report. They've downloaded an Excel file onto their personal laptop, and they leave it on the train when they're on the way to the bus or on the way to the airport or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely there's a lot of good reasons to move to BYOD, but do it the right way and keep that security injected in. The other big reason that folks are looking at VDI is really around utilizing thin clients in place of the PC infrastructure. So a lot of the time, you can imagine the large offices, financial institutions where there's just tons and tons of, we're talking thousands or tens of thousands of physical PCs that are sprawled around the infrastructure. They're sucking up power like crazy. They're all running their own sets of CPUs and memory and hard drive. And essentially, you've not just sprawled the data, but you've also sprawled the power. So using thin clients, it takes a small fraction of the amount of power, and you're able to take advantage of that fact with VDI. It pretty much is one of the #1 reasons that folks are moving over. The other thing that's interesting that folks have started looking at doing, and in fact we do have one customer that's doing this today, is they can start by repurposing their physical PCs by locking them down and essentially turning them into thin clients. So they're not going to instantly get to take advantage of the power savings, but they're able to start taking advantage of VDI immediately without having to cycle out those physical PCs in favor of thin clients until those physical PCs actually start to typically die. Until you pop a CPU or lose DRAM in that physical PC, you can continue to use it in a lockdown mode where it's essentially malware and virus resistant. It's purely going to be used to connect back to the data center and access that virtual desktop instance. But at the same time, you don't have to immediately make that big investment into thin clients. So, that being said, I think that kind of covers all of the basics of VDI. So let's go ahead and move on to the next polling question, Nick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch, and that's a great overview of VDI and some of the drivers behind why people are moving to it. So the next thing we want to find out from you guys is just high level, what's the #1 priority at your organization? Is it saving money? Is it the power issue? Is it just reducing overall complexity? Is it offering more options to users, or is it something altogether different, some other #1 priority? So let us know. Give you a few moments to think about that. Just a few more seconds for people to weigh in on this topic, the #1 priority in your organization.
And the other thing I'd mention, folks, is if you do have questions, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A panel, and we can get to them as they come in or at the end.
And I did ask Mitch if he's comfortable with any questions, and he says he is yet to be stumped. So we would like somebody to ask some really hard questions. And just, let's try to see if we can test them a little bit here. So that'll be great. I'm going to go ahead and close it out and share the results with you. And you can see that there's a tie between saving money and reducing complexity. Those seem like the two largest priorities that we're seeing out there. And then to a slightly lesser extent, just providing more options, and not so much on the power consumption side. So very helpful. That'll help Mitch as he goes through the rest of his presentation. It's just interesting information. So we're going to turn it back over to you, Mitch. Take it away again.
Wonderful. So that's good to know. So yeah, it's interesting. There seems to be a lot of regional dependence on the power consumption question. A lot of areas around the United States, power is a commodity that's easy to come by. In a lot of countries in Europe and Japan and Asia, power can be a lot more expensive. It can be a much bigger driver of the overall purpose. But hey, saving money is still saving money, and if reducing power can help save money too, then great. But yeah, so essentially, we have some great use cases around education, which I want to talk about a little bit. I know we do have quite a few educators that are on the line here today. Now, these points are still quite applicable to use cases outside of education, around government, around healthcare, around nonprofits, and even around enterprise and SME. The reality is that across all verticals that we're encountering these days, folks do have challenge with allocating budget for projects where there's not an immediate understanding that there's going to be a cost saving over time. And especially if you're looking at needing to purchase, potentially, a large amount of storage and compute infrastructure to accomplish a project like VDI, a lot of times the finance folks or the CIO types are going to be a little reticent until we can completely allow them to understand where value proposition is. Around schools, you would potentially are going to have a lot of equipment that's we call well-loved, that's been around for maybe a few more years than in most scenarios. But what we found is that even if across enterprise and other areas, we definitely have equipment that should have probably been cycled out many years before. But folks are making do. They're using what they have and they're making the best of it. It's the reality of our situation these days is that you got to really get into the equipment that's maybe not going to be the most ideal. The other issue that we see in a lot of kind of the K-12 schools and even into the community college and university systems, their broadband can be a little spotty, and their network uplink can be maybe not the best, and it makes it really challenging for them to use some of the different products that are really targeted for them. So we like to kind of show them the way that we can actually enable them to do a lot more. Definitely being able to stretch the lifespan of those older PCs, as we talked about in one of the previous slides, reutilizing those thick PCs as thin clients just by locking them down. That's already a huge value proposition for a lot of the organizations that we encounter. Absolutely lowering management burden, and I think that was one of our top answers here, was reducing complexity and management overhead. I mean, that's really what VDI, where VDI really shines. So essentially, the most interesting thing about VDI is the utilization of that linked clone and base image technology, where what you're doing is you're standardizing on a single golden base image, we call the golden master image, and using that to deploy clones for the infrastructure. So essentially, you're taking all of that management burden and overhead that your IT folks are encountering today, where they have to roam around the infrastructure and, say, apply a patch or an update to the end users, or install an application on a one-off basis for maybe a group of say the group of accountants that need a special version of QuickBooks, and now the IT guys going to get have to suck up 20, 30, 40 hours to make his way on the rounds across the accounting team to do that install. With VDI, that problem becomes a thing of the past, because essentially that work gets done once, and then simply using the management tools, the result of that work is deployed across the infrastructure, which could be in a targeted manner. So, for instance, when adding an application, that application could be virtualized and then just exposed according to group policy. So it becomes a pretty cool way to really decrease that management burden and get a lot more out of the IT staff in terms of their productivity, and without having to stretch folks in terms of time. So, the cool thing there is that you're talking about using this base image, but, obviously there's going to have to be something that remembers what the state is of that virtual machine at any given time. And that's what we call the delta, or the difference file. So essentially what we do is we take those delta files, and we can store those away onto a shared storage device and allow for persistence of the session. So essentially, with Nimdesk, there's two main models that Nimdesk can operate in, either non-persistent or persistent, and it really depends on how those difference files are stored. And really, when you want to take the maximum advantage of VDI from an infrastructure point of view, you want to recycle those deltas. So what we're talking about is non-persistent VDI, and utilizing that link clone technology to generate non-persistent VMs, which are going to be much more efficient and secure, much more malware and virus resistant. Even if someone were to actually get a virus on their machine, their virtual machine, simply logging out and logging back in will wipe that virus out. So it's kind of a cool way that we can provide a lot more functionality from a VDI point of view to allow folks to really take advantage of the VDI technology, along with some of those hypervisor technologies like we were talking about. Now, what a lot of folks are going to be concerned with here is, so that's great that we can wipe out the session, and maybe for a lot of use cases that would make a lot of sense, say for something like a call center or a terminal in a public area or a kiosk. But my users need to save data. They need to be able to have a Word file that they're working on and have it not go away if they were to save it on the desktop. So that's where layering comes into view. So essentially what we're able to do with Nimdesk is redirect the storage request based on the type of data that's being accessed. So essentially what we have here is the ability to take that operating system and app layer and force it into the non-persistent clone that gets reset on every reboot. And essentially there's never any data that lives in those layers that is not okay to completely dispose of at the end of the session. Additionally, we're able to take the kind of temp data and paging files, which can be really heavy hitters from an I/O point of view, and point them towards a disposable disk. So really what we're talking about here is slicing up the I/O workload across the entire virtual machine and redirecting those I/Os depending on what type they are. User data disk is obviously the next interesting place that you'd want to redirect. And user data disk, the cool thing there is that's going to be where your Word files and Excel files and all your documents are going to live. And they're just going to be transparently redirected onto a shared storage device. So now what we're able to do is essentially take that vanilla linked clone disposable environment, and slice it up. So now the operating system and application are being disposed and recycled on every reboot or every logout. The temp and paging file are being redirected to a disposable disk. It's also going to go away every time the virtual machine is logged out and logged back in. But then our user data is going to live in a completely separate location that's not going to be recycled each time somebody logs off and logs back in. So that's really huge. The other thing that's being utilized by, I'd say, over 90% of our customers is for their profile, user profile and personality. So we're talking about the desktop background, they customize the sounds that happen when they do different activities in Windows, their mouse cursors, that kind of thing. That all gets redirected to a shared storage device. So if someone were to say change their desktop background to the picture of their kids or their dog or something like that, that's going to persist. When they log back in the next morning, they're still going to feel like they're in exactly the same environment that they were in the day before. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the next polling question, Nick, when you get a chance here.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so the final polling question for today is just trying to get a feel for the number of users that you're in your organization. And I know if you're a partner, it's a little bit tough because you probably have lots of different customers, but just give us a range if you're a partner of kind of what typical size customer you're dealing with, and if you're an end user, give us a feel for your organization. Are you a little small guy, 1 to 10 users? Is it more 11 to 50, 51 to 100, 100 to 1,000, or over 1,000? So I think that'll have some impact on VDI and how it gets set up and what kind of infrastructure sits behind it. Really good description, I think, Mitch, and we are getting quite a few questions coming in, so we'll have a great session for you at the end, which is really good.
Wonderful.
All right, let's just give you guys another 5 seconds to vote, and then we'll give you a feel for the different size organizations that are being represented on this webinar. All right, let's go ahead and close it out, and as you can see, the bulk sit between 100 and 1,000 users. There's a fair good percentage over 1,000 users, and then there's a smattering of smaller companies as well. So that's very useful information, very helpful. And with that, we'll turn it back over to Mitch again.
Perfect. That's good to know. So essentially, it sounds like the larger enterprise is really showing up in force here, as well as the larger organizations, such as I know a lot of the schools are dealing with thousands, hundreds and thousands of students and users. So it's great to know that those folks are represented here, and we'll definitely dive into a really good reference architecture here when we get to the next phase. First off, though, we wanted to make sure that we cover. I know we laid a lot of groundwork here and talked a lot about Huawei, as well as about kind of VDI in general and some of the offerings that make things interesting for our IT folks and end users. We haven't really talked about ourselves yet, so I want to take this chance to just go ahead and talk about Nimdesk, what Nimdesk is and what Nimdesk makes. I did see we did get a question in that, we kind of put the cart before the horse a little bit on this webinar. We like to keep it interesting, so make sure that folks are engaged. But we definitely are going to go into deeper detail about us and what we do. So, we are a development team. We build software. We're enterprise software developers, and we are experts in virtualization, storage, and networking. So we have a team where the founders come from enterprise storage and software background, as well as virtualization, and major players around the virtualization world, and have a lot of DNA that covers those areas extremely well. We make software for VDI and desktops as a service. The software, you can think of it as a VDI provisioner broker, and for desktop as a service, this is a cloud service that folks are able to subscribe to, essentially that allows end users to log in to a simple public internet site and securely get a session that's a cloud desktop delivered to their endpoint. So yeah, essentially what we've made is what folks in the industry would call a provisioner broker. So provisioning means creating virtual machines using those technologies in the hypervisor to optimize storage and optimize compute, and then broker. Essentially, it can combine that either Active Directory or LDAP user directory with the organization and essentially be able to entitle specific users and groups to have access to those desktops. And we definitely cover the gamut there in terms of our customer base. Most of our customers are the traditional on-premise with those large enterprise and large organization, large university, which we'll also get to here in a second. But yeah, we do also cover the smaller organizations, which are more inclined usually to take their infrastructure as already built and have it delivered over the web, which is very, very convenient for them and allows them to kind of amortize their cost and use the utility model to gain access to those desktops. Why do folks choose Nimdesk? So we like to think that Nimdesk, out of all of the VDI solutions available right now, is absolutely the easiest to deploy and manage. We went to great pains to reduce the amount of complexity of the VDI scenario and make it just extremely super easy to digest, to run, and to use over time. We did that by really simplifying the approach to the problem, utilizing best practices around all of the utilization of infrastructure and the hypervisor and storage, and really just making it, just easy to digest, taking all of those difficult VDI problems that people encounter and just removing them from the purview of the actual IT administrator. So the IT administrator can simply assign someone to deploy the Nimdesk solution across the infrastructure, and it just works. At the same time, we still offer a lot of the elasticity and flexibility that folks need in terms of being able to use persistent or non-persistent virtual machines, as well as be able to completely scale out the solution horizontally by simply adding more servers with built-in storage. And we can get into that a bit. We do have reference architectures that are ready to run and proven with Huawei Enterprise Server and Storage. Particularly the Huawei PCIe attached flash device, which we found to be extremely intriguing. It's something that folks would definitely want to take a look at. Just for doing virtualization in general, it can be an extremely powerful tool, but especially for non-persistent VDI, it just makes a huge difference. So let's go into a little bit more detail. Nimdesk is definitely easy. I've been doing VDI for probably a good 7 or 8 years at this point in one way, shape, or form, and encounter a lot of various types of VDI scenarios that made me want to pull my hair out, just to be frank. And the first time that we talked about putting together a VDI solution that we'd make available for the general public, absolutely the #1 requirement was to reduce a lot of those complexities and to make it as simple, intuitive, and easy to use and easy to manage as possible. Using those best practices, going back to the basics really of UI in terms of, do I want to have to log into 4 or 5 different panels in order to manage and control this infrastructure, or can I make it make sense with just a single panel or possibly 2 panels if you're supporting multiple organizations with multi-tenancy to be able to manage and to run the entire infrastructure. And obviously less is more in this case. We don't want to have a lot of places where things can frankly go wrong. We want to keep it as simple as possible and easy to manage as possible. And that's really, I think we hit the mark on that with Nimdesk, and our customers and partners have agreed with us on that. Additionally, Nimdesk is really capable of decreasing the total cost of ownership of a VDI solution. This is great for our customers as well as for our partners, as our partners are able to deliver more value and bring their own professional services to the table and allow them to really take advantage of a great piece of software that's easy to digest and to absorb and bring that to their end users. But even to the end users, just the fact that we approach this problem with an air of simplicity and removing complexity, removing kind of the more expensive componentry out of the equation, it really allows them to reduce their overall cost in deployment. A big part of that is obviously going to be encapsulated on the power side of the equation. As we talked about before, reducing power consumption and saving money are kind of hand in hand. But additionally, it's human resources. So when you're able to administer an entire VDI platform for thousands of end users with just a couple of IT guys or engineers, in our case, it really makes a huge difference in terms of the overall cost that's being absorbed by the organization. Flexibility is definitely one of the top reasons that folks are using Nimdesk. The fact that you can scale out horizontally and keep adding to the infrastructure without having any scalability limitations, up to thousands and thousands of end users, it's really huge for folks. And we've proven that in the UCLA library use case, which we're going to get into here shortly. But yeah, Nimdesk is great if you've got a small organization, which some of the folks on the call here have. Particularly if you use the web-driven cloud model, it's great for small organizations. But if you're talking about an organization with thousands of users that'll be logging in, whether those are your traditional type of task and knowledge workers around an infrastructure, or if they're a large call center, or a school with a lot of thin clients for students to log into to do their schoolwork or to access their documents. Nimdesk is really flexible and able to adapt to all of those situations with ease. And it really comes back to the simplicity of the solution that allows for that flexibility, as well as the horizontal scale out, which we can talk about here in a bit too. So coming back to UCLA, UCLA is definitely one of our favorite places as Nimdesk. We're really excited to have them utilizing our software and happy that they're happy with the solution. They have 50,000 or so students that are using Nimdesk today. So we don't question the scale out anymore once we talk about these numbers. They are using kiosk. So the students essentially have access to a kiosk-based login. We actually just developed a login portal specifically for UCLA, along with their help. Essentially to make sure that we got the branding and everything that they wanted correctly. But essentially when the users encounter their public terminals across all of the library systems, what they'll see is the screen that you see on the right here, where it's click to launch tests. Essentially when they click on that button, it immediately presents them with the opportunity to enter in their Active Directory username and password. And as soon as they enter in that credential, it immediately presents them with their desktop session that's authenticated against the domain there. Cool thing there is that they utilize these little thin client, what we call them the backpack solution. So they essentially took they removed all the CRTs a long time ago, but they've been using flat screens with thick PCs for their public terminals until Nimdesk was able to cycle those out. But essentially what they're able to do is add these little thin client backpacks that kind of screw onto the back of the monitor and go back to the keyboard and mouse from the USB port there. And essentially they're able to cycle out all of those thick clients, almost all of those thick clients. There's still a couple of them that are still kicking around. It's an impossible problem to completely go out and cover an entire infrastructure like UCLA. It literally takes months or years to completely find every last little thick client that's out there across the infrastructure. But we're getting to them one by one, so it's pretty cool to watch the software being absorbed in that use case. So, currently there's 13 libraries that are utilizing the solution across the UCLA campus. The services are all centralized at this point into one location, which is the basement of the Powell Library, where there's a little data center. The IT folks have been able to administer all of the thin client desktops from basically one little cubicle. And essentially we have we have students that are able to administer this software. So that kind of speaks to how the simplicity of the software and the ease of management. I think they're getting. I hope they're getting paid, but essentially they're not requiring full-time engineers to be employed here or full-time IT staff that they would expect to have to be on site here to manage and deploy these desktops. They're able to get it done with a pretty small crew of mostly students and student workers that are administering the VDI scenario, and that's huge. I mean, I can't say how huge that is. The fact that we're able to keep the software in such a state of simplicity and ease of use that the cost savings there pretty much justify the entire project, including storage, software, hardware, everything. Just from a human resource perspective. UCLA has elucidated to us some of the benefits that they're seeing, which we're very, very pleased to get some of this feedback. They're happy with the stability of the environment. They've been dealing with those big PCs that they crash, they go down. CPUs fail, memory fails, and it just ends up being a headache for folks to have to go roam around the libraries to go and take care of those problems on a one-off basis. So being able to have that stability from the first instant was really huge for them. Scalable solution, so we can keep scaling out their scenario. Right now they're capable of deploying to thousands of students, so we can continue to add additional power to that deployment to even enable more students to use the system simultaneously. They're really happy with the flexibility and performance. When folks log into their desktop, because they're booting off of server grade infrastructure, memory and CPU, as well as PCIe based flash memory, they're just super high performing. The desktops are great. If you click on to open up a Word document or something like that, there's no lag, there's no latency problems. It just immediately opens, and folks are really happy with it. Folks, we do have UCLA as well as a couple other case studies available on our website, so feel free to go to browse over there at nimdesk.com/case-studies to see more. I think folks will be pretty excited to see some of the different use cases that folks are using with Nimdesk. So let's talk a little bit about the architecture proposed for a basic 500 concurrent user non-persistent VDI scenario. This is utilizing Huawei server and storage. You could use this with your existing kind of firewall, VPN, and storage solutions in terms of shared storage. Or there are also scenarios where Huawei would be able to put together those solutions as well. We like to focus more purely on the server and the internal storage because that's where our software really shines. Being able to utilize VDI without a SAN is kind of one of the main draws that folks have towards using Nimdesk as well. So essentially, what makes this tick is the PCIe attached flash. The Huawei PCIe flash cards, flash SSDs, they're incredible. They're incredibly fast, and what really makes them interesting, to someone like me and some of our guys that have been, a long time in the enterprise storage area, is the latency profile. So with the Huawei cards, essentially 99% plus of the requests that are made to the cards are returned in a matter of microseconds. So compare that to compare that to a SAN or a disk array or even a hard drive. There's no comparison because you're talking about the order of milliseconds, 1,000 times longer to resolve those requests. But then compare that against other flash products, and what you're going to find, and I encourage folks to kind of do this research and look at this. Don't take my word on it, but the latency profile just makes such a huge difference when you're talking about servicing requests that are coming from virtual desktops, because now you've got in this case, 500 concurrent users that could all potentially be having requests that need to be resolved from, at a simultaneous basis. So if you're having to queue up behind other people, then you're going to end up with a latency that's noticeable, and it could in fact be impacting to the overall performance. Nobody likes to, double-click on, their Word document and have to sit and wait for 5 or 10 or 15 seconds or more for it to finally resolve and open up that document on the desktop. So having that ability to really reduce the latency in a predictable way is just really, really incredible. And the Huawei cards do that in spades. They're just incredible, incredibly fast, incredibly good latency profile, and they don't have those kind of going out, what we call kind of the out to lunch moments where you make a request and say 70% of the time or 80% of the time that request gets resolved within that microsecond profile, but then 10% of the time or 20% of the time, or sometimes a little more with some of these flash-based SSD devices, it could still be on a matter of milliseconds. And then that adds up, and you end up having what we call kind of the baby elephant profile, where nobody, the whole herd can only move as fast as the littlest baby elephant walking around with the herd. So yeah, essentially with the Huawei cards, that problem's resolved, and things move really fast, and they're very, very excellent performance profile. We've been really happy with it. But yeah, so looking at the overall picture here, so we're talking about adding these Huawei PCIe flash cards to 2U rack mount Huawei servers in a reasonable dual socket Xeon CPU and DRAM, and suddenly you've got a 500 user deployment in a 4U of rack space. So pretty incredible little tight little offering there. And then again, the firewall, VPN, and shared storage data, there are definitely options available, and I encourage folks to reach out to their Huawei reps to see what's available for that side of the equation as well. So I think that pretty much wraps up the presentation here. We do have a couple of good next steps that folks can take. We are offering that free 7-day Nimdesk Cloud test drive that folks can take advantage of just by going to nimdesk.com/test-drive, and it's essentially going to give you access to a Windows desktop for a week. And interestingly enough, for folks on the call here, I'm running this entire webinar out of a Nimdesk Cloud desktop, and it's kind of funny because when we were first talking with Nick, he was warning me that if you have any pop-ups that happen on your desktop, then potentially that could interrupt the webinar. And we said, well, we have a solution for that. It's called the Nimdesk Cloud. We open up a non-persistent desktop, and there are no pop-ups just by definition, because we're not necessarily logged into any of those services that would cause them to happen. So yeah, so nimdesk.com/test-drive, and you can start getting your desktop immediately out of the cloud, and encourage folks to go log on there and try it out, and you're going to be pretty impressed by it. Additionally, going forward, if you're happy with this solution and you want to try deploying it across your own infrastructure, we'll be happy to set you up with all the information you need to download the virtual appliance and deploy it into your infrastructure, whether that's your own hypervisor or if you wanted to build one up based on Huawei servers and storage. And I think that's all of my presentation, Nick. So if you want to let me know if there's questions that have been coming in, I'll be happy to go over those.
Yeah, excellent. And there's a lot of questions. This has been very interactive from a question perspective, so thank you in the audience for submitting all those. One of the first ones is, are there any limitations to the type of software you can run or that you should run with a Nimdesk VDI?
Sure. So in terms of the applications that run inside the virtual desktop, I would say that it all depends on the server and storage infrastructure. So definitely when you're utilizing the high-powered rack-mount server solution with flash-based memory, no limitations whatsoever. That things just rock and roll. Now, there are special cases with programs that require 3D or graphics use cases, in which case we recommend to also add a GPU card that's compatible with the hypervisor in use, whether that's Hyper-V or ESXi or KVM. We definitely recommend that folks utilize a GPU card if they're going to be doing things like AutoCAD.
Excellent, excellent, great answer. The next one is, how does the software licensing work? So if somebody's running Microsoft Office or Adobe or a CAD system, how do you guys deal with the software licensing issue?
Yeah, so there's a few strategies that folks can take advantage of for dealing with licensing. Definitely on the Microsoft side, when we're dealing with large organizations, they're going to have volume licensing in place. So that becomes a pretty easy question to answer. You simply take your KMS server and you point the desktops to that using group policy, and that all just works. From an application point of view, non-persistent does present some challenges around not necessarily licensing, but possibly activating the software as it comes up. And we can show folks how to do that with simple GPO logon scripts. It's pretty straightforward at the end of the day. It's not, a lot of folks are trying to make it sound like it's a much more difficult problem than it is, but we can definitely show you some great strategies for accomplishing that.
Excellent. Okay. The next one is, can you customize your desktop for each user within the VDI system?
Absolutely. So we touched on that a bit. I can definitely go into a little bit more detail. So that's coming back to that layering picture. Essentially what we're able to do is to slice up the workload so that the different portions of the workload are going to be resolved by different areas of storage. And that's really where the customization comes into play, because now what we're talking about is taking that profile data, the picture of your kids, and putting that onto the shared storage device that's being replicated and backed up, and with all of those best practices for storage, but then just presenting that in real time as the user logs in. So they're going to get the full customization experience with respect to the profile portions. Now, from the application point of view, there are other strategies and scenarios where folks might want to have, and we did touch on this a little bit, but we'll probably go into a little bit more, where folks are essentially going to have the desire to have specific employees and specific groups that have access to specific applications, and others may not. We also have solutions that enable you to take advantage of the group policy, where you'll have a single golden master image that essentially has those applications installed. Yet when the users log in, they're in real time to get redirected to take advantage of whichever application they're entitled to use. It's pretty cool solutions that we'll be happy to show people how to get running in the context of Nimdesk.
Excellent, excellent. Next one is, how do I become a Huawei or Nimdesk partner? I'll just take the Huawei piece first. If you look at the URL that's up on the screen under the Huawei logo, HuaweiEnterpriseUSA.com, go to that website, click on the partners section, and there's a place to apply to be a partner. Very simple process that you fill out an online reseller application, and you can click through on the NDA and the reseller agreement, and then you can be approved, and that will give you access to a part of our website that has pricing and certification training and deal registration and all kinds of sophisticated things that are specific to the partner. So, and Mitch, how about becoming a Nimdesk partner?
Yeah, absolutely. So Nimdesk.com, definitely go visit our website, and there is a big yellow button up in the upper right-hand corner. We are very much partner-oriented. As I mentioned, we're a team of developers. We don't focus on sales and marketing as much, and we allow our partners, and essentially this is why we're on the call here with Huawei, which is an excellent partner of Nimdesk that has really taken us under their wing a bit in terms of this marketing portion. But yeah, we are very partner friendly. We allow partners to not just take our software and sell to their end user, but also to take our software and actually rebrand it. It's a fully white labelable solution, so they can take the software and add their touch on it, their localization. Say if they're running in a different region of the globe, their brand, their messaging, and redeliver that to their end users.
Excellent. Okay. The next one is, how does internet availability affect the usability of VDI? Is there a concept of kind of offline mode and syncing, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you know, this is offline VDI is a huge challenge in and of itself that a couple of the virtualization software vendors have attempted to accomplish over the years. I've never seen a good solution for it, to be honest. You know, we don't offer one. You know, just to be clear, there we don't have any offline mode. If you don't have access to the network where your virtual desktop is being served from, then you won't be able to get to your virtual desktop, and that's just the reality from dealing with a Nimdesk solution, as well as the vast majority of our competitors that also offer similar solutions. There are a few examples of offline VDI, and I just haven't seen one that I was really happy with the way that it worked and the way that things overall functioned, just from a performance, reliability point of view. And if you're truly going to offer something that's available offline and syncs up later, then you're going to, by definition, be missing out on a lot of the advantages of VDI in terms of isolation and security and keeping the data in the data center. So that is a two-edged sword in and of itself. But yeah, you know, the cool thing is these days, you can get internet on airplanes. I mean, nobody imagined this, or I guess people imagined this, but you know, nobody really saw this coming as fast as it has been. You know, we've got Google Wi-Fi that covers, you know, the vast majority of you know, some of the cities around where we are in the Bay Area, and it's free. You can log in; it works great. You got internet access. You just open up your laptop and you're connected. Access on airplanes, access in public areas. So really, that offline value proposition, I think, is diminishing rapidly. But you know, I still understand how folks can be reticent to look at a VDI scenario if they really, you know, get nervous around not being able to have that internet access at all times. And so we definitely respect that opinion as well. I've yet to find, you know, a solution to the offline desktop problem that I was really confident with and would want to put in front of a customer.
Excellent. We still have a lot of other questions, but we only have time for one more. So if we didn't get to your question, we will respond to you directly. I know there's some people that have requested specific one-on-one meetings, and we'll certainly follow up and make sure those happen. The last question that we're going to take is, how does the pricing of the Nimdesk VDI solution compare to physical laptops or traditional SAN-based architecture?
Got it. Yeah. So I love that question. So yeah, essentially, Nimdesk, in a scenario like the one with the Huawei reference architecture that we displayed there, where you're using a Huawei server solution and a PCIe attached flash card, it's going to be a small fraction of the cost of a traditional, well, definitely of a traditional PC approach. Just from the perspective of power alone, it's going to be a fraction of the cost, a small fraction of the cost. But then when you're comparing with other VDI solutions, where the first requirement that they have, you know, some of these companies are kind of tied very closely with storage vendors that are also offering VDI solutions and virtualization solutions. The first qualifying question they have is, well, okay, what do you want to do about storage? And it's really kind of a big headache for folks, because the next thing they need to do is look at purchasing you know, a $500,000 SAN just to be able to stand up 500 desktops. So you're already $1,000 in the hole on a per user basis. Now compare that with a PCIe flash card, and you can see why folks are really drawn to that type of solution. So we're talking about a fraction of the price. You can't even compare. And we'd be happy to go into more detail with, you know, on a one-on-one basis with folks to kind of show them what that picture looks like.
Excellent. Well, Mitch, I think we're about out of time. For people that want to see a demo of the Nimdesk solution and or see a demo of any of the Huawei products, please contact us either at the email or phone number or by going to our website. I'd like to thank everybody for their time, and especially a huge thank you to Mitch Crane, the CEO of Nimdesk, for just joining us and enlightening all of us on all the benefits and an overview of VDI and also specifically the Nimdesk solution. We will see you very soon on another Huawei webinar, but thanks again to everyone, and Mitch, thank you again very much.
My pleasure, and thanks everyone for attending and for your patience.